Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on the benefits and challenges of mentorship in the construction industry. I'm Chris Kane, Executive Director at CPWR, the Center for Construction Research and Training, and I'll be moderating the webinar. I'm happy to have the research team from the University of Washington here with me today to talk about the recently completed CPWR-funded project on mentoring women in the trades. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Marissa Baker, an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences at the University of Washington School of Public Health, as well as Lily Muncy. She is Dr. Baker's research coordinator and an MPH student in the same department. Dr. Baker, I will hand it over to you to get started.
Great, thank you, Chris. So we're going to go ahead and share our slides for the group. All right, we are thrilled to be here today to talk about the mentorship program that we developed and deployed as part of a 5-year project that we had funded by CPWR. So just to introduce ourselves, as Chris mentioned, I'm Marissa Baker. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Washington in the School of Public Health in the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences. I have a research interest in women's experiences at work, particularly in male majority industries such as construction.
Hi, everyone. My name's Lily, and like Chris mentioned, I am Marissa's research coordinator here at the University of Washington. I am also a master's in public health student and have been working on this project for the past almost 5 years as research coordinator. So I've been working with study participants and helping to develop and deploy the mentorship training that we're going to be talking about today. And I'm really excited to be here. And some of my interests include characterizing worker experiences, particularly those of more vulnerable worker populations, through qualitative methods.
So today we are excited to be able to share 4 things with you. So first, we're going to discuss a little bit why mentorship and psychosocial safety is such an important part of occupational health and safety. We will just briefly discuss our study background and the motivation for our study. Then we will move into our mentorship training itself, the design of that and the content. And we're excited to then be able to share those mentorship resources out to you and your networks. So mentorship we see as being kind of an important part of occupational health. And that is because psychosocial safety is a key component of health and safety at work. So psychosocial safety encompasses how work-related factors negatively impact mental health and well-being. And exposure to psychosocial safety hazards at work can be related to physical health outcomes, but also mental health outcomes, as well as things like stress, burnout, job satisfaction, and retention. And it's a vital aspect of tradeswomen health and safety because tradeswomen frequently experience gendered psychosocial safety exposures, including things like harassment and discrimination, lack of sanitary facilities, supervisor disregard for ill-fitting PPE, and decreased ability to take advantage of overtime opportunities due to a greater burden of family responsibilities. So we know that these feeling safe at work, feeling like you can self-advocate, and is an important aspect of overall health and safety. It's also an important part of the total worker health perspective that CDC NIOSH support because it can if you have a workplace with an emphasis on psychosocial safety, it can improve your culture, it can broaden your workplace demographics, and it can create a safer workplace for everyone who works there. So kind of what motivated our study here and our mentorship program is a recognition that tradeswomen are at a higher risk of psychosocial and physical risk factors in construction compared to their male counterparts. And we already talked about some of these, but for psychosocial risk factors, women still face discrimination and harassment routinely in the construction industry, and challenges with work-life balance due to the hours of the construction industry not always being compatible with serving a caregiver role to either a child or a parent. And we also see physical risk factors that impact women. Injury risk, just like anybody working in construction, but this can be compounded by ill-fitting PPE for women. Women are also more likely to experience overcompensation at work and workload demands, which impact women's physical health. So our study, which was funded by CPWR as part of their 5 years from NIOSH, we developed a mentorship curriculum for tradeswomen. And then we worked with SMART, so sheet metal, air, rail, and transportation. We worked with SMART locals across the country and recruited mentors into our study. And mentors were journey level women. So we trained mentors using the curriculum that we developed, and then we paired the mentors with apprentice level mentees. So female apprentices who were in either the 4th or 5th year of their apprenticeship program. And then we followed these pairings for a year of mentorship. And we assessed a variety of outcomes in the pairing, particularly in the apprentice, including stress, their intent to leave the trades, injuries, and also their use and application of the mentorship skills that we hoped that they got through their mentor. So we trained the mentors, and then we looked and, had the mentors impart those skills to the mentees, and then saw how the mentorship program improved the work life of the apprentice women. And our goal, of course, is to not only create a safer and healthier workplace for these women, but also to improve their retention in the trades and, to also improve recruitment through creating, more women in the trades.
All right, thanks, Marissa. I'm going to pick up here with some of the broad structure of the mentorship program. So like Marissa mentioned, a lot of the tradeswomen who we were aiming to serve with this program are dealing with a variety of psychosocial and physical hazards on the job. And something that we heard in formative data that helped inform this mentorship program from tradeswomen here in Washington State is that mentorship is a powerful tool in terms of mitigating and sort of helping apprentice women who might be struggling in this profession to navigate the male-dominated culture and learn skills like active listening, goal setting, problem solving, and self-advocacy as tools to help them navigate this male-dominated culture. On this slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual design of the mentorship program itself. And there were two primary parts of the mentorship program. This was developed in 2020 and was deployed with our first cohort of mentors in 2021. And as such, we had to translate a lot of our plans for in-person training with our mentors to being fully remote and online. And so in the coming slides, we're going to show you more details from our online self-paced training that was module style and allowed mentors to go through that training at their own pace and on their own time. But we also had another part of our training program that included online live Zoom training sessions that were guided by a trained facilitator who helped facilitate things like skills practice, discussion among our mentors, and just overall discussion of how a lot of these skills can be applied in the field, and trying to make this mentorship program feel realistic and supportive for the real life situations that our mentors and mentees were dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so as part of the online self-paced training, which we will walk you through in a few slides here, there were 8 modules total, and it takes about 2 to 3 hours total to complete. For like a full breakdown of everything that we covered in the training, we had an introductory diving into mentorship module, kind of looking at why mentorship, what the benefits of mentorship are, and why now. We had a module on relationship building, which was designed to help mentors go through the process of building an initial connection with their mentee. We also had a goal practices or goal setting session where we had mentors practice the process of setting really small, achievable goals and how to help their mentees do this. We had a section on active listening and communication skills so that mentors, both for themselves and with their mentees, were able to really effectively listen and support their mentees. We had a problem-solving section that went through one potential strategy for addressing and approaching problems that can come up on the job site. We also had a self-advocacy section. So here focusing on, if you wanted perhaps to move up in your role or take on new responsibilities on your job site, how to advocate for that effectively. We also had a navigating challenges section of the training, and this specifically spoke to common challenges that can come up in mentorship, like mentors and mentees having really busy schedules and not necessarily being able to meet regularly, and how to deal with that. How to deal with other challenges like burnout, and how to engage in effective self-care strategies. We also had a final module that was focused on using a combination of these mentoring skills in practice, since we know that often we don't necessarily have a conversation with our mentee, using just one of these skills, but in reality, a lot of these things are synthesized together as you're working with a mentee. So we're going to show you some stills of the training here, and then we will actually take you onto our online platform and show you how this online training, the self-paced portion of the training, looks, because at the end of this presentation, we're going to share these resources with you, and so we're excited to sort of show you how to navigate them. So here you can see that every section has a bar on the left-hand side so that you can page through the different pages of each training section. We started each training section with a video kind of describing how this skill is applicable and useful in mentorship. And throughout each training section, we had lots of visual aids, often sort of estimated time to completion, so people can think about how to complete each section and how to allow enough time for that. Something that we considered when we put all of this online was trying to create sections that were relatively brief, easily digestible chunks of information that could be covered in 20 to 30 minutes at a time, taking into consideration that a lot of tradeswomen are extremely busy and have limited time, and recognizing that having them sit down to do a 6+ hour training might not be realistic in the day-to-day. We also had scenarios where the learner can page through different situations that might come up at work and sort of choose different pathways for how to handle any given situation. We also had models like this to help show and describe, in this case, the process of setting goal practices, like we mentioned earlier. So we tried to include a variety of video, visual, audio, and text elements to keep the training as engaging as possible. And we are actually going to just switch gears here for a moment and pull up our training. Bear with us. Okay, I'm hoping everyone here can see the training screen here, which this is the home screen for our training. And we will give more details on this later Okay, great. Thank you. Later in the presentation for how to register for this, but for now we'll show you how to move through some sections of the training. So first, I just wanted to highlight the resources section here, which includes some training materials, a mentor handbook, which is almost sort of a very brief, succinct guide of everything covered in this online asynchronous training. We also have a best practices guide that's linked here, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. But here is really the focus of the training, which is these 4 different core modules. I'm going to take us to the Mentor Toolbox module here, which contains sections on relationship building, goal practices, and active listening. So I'm going to take us into the active listening module here. So like I mentioned, there's a video to start you out. As we go through the section, we have a little introduction to what active listening is, asking also the learner to reflect on their experience with communication. We also have in this section an audio call. So you can play a call between a mentor and mentee to see what active listening looks like in real time. And then we really break down the process step by step. How can you engage in active listening effectively? So the first step here is to connect. We give some recommendations for how to effectively do that. Second is to clarify, so you maybe better understand what your mentee might actually be trying to say rather than your idea of what they're saying based on some sort of miscommunication. And third is validating. So validating the emotions that might come up in a conversation with your mentee. We also cover in every section some things that can kind of block or be a hindrance in the process of engaging in the skill. So here, things like comparing, derailing, sparring, and advising can be things that actually fuel disconnection rather than connection with your mentee. And we talk about in each of these how that comes up and how to avoid it. At the end of most of our sections too, we have another video, in this case with one of the tradeswomen allies who we worked closely with to develop the training, kind of talking about her experience engaging in active listening with mentees throughout her career. So as much as we can in this training, we try to pull in examples and stories from tradeswomen to make this skill feel as applicable and real world as possible. Okay, and we are going to pop back into our presentation here. Okay, so something we want to discuss today with all of you is what really are the key steps to building your own mentorship program, or perhaps enhancing one that you have already at your organization or local. And we cover a wide variety of steps through the planning and administration and evaluation process of how to build and sustain a mentorship program in our best practices guide that I referenced in that resources section of the training. But we wanted to highlight some really key steps that are included in that guide, but that we wanted to break down for you here in our discussion today. And so those are how to assess support at your local or your organization. So who shares your vision and who in leadership can really support you in creating a mentorship program. We also are going to talk a little bit more about key mentorship program support roles. We're going to talk about how to select mentors and how to find mentors who are going to be really strong for your cohort. We'll talk a little bit about strategies for matching your mentors and your mentees. And then we're going to talk about strategies to sustain your program in the longer term. All right, so in terms of assessing support, something we hear from the tradeswomen who participated in our mentor cohort is that having someone in a leadership role at your local fully on board is really key to just having the support and that you need to build a mentorship program and to make sure that you have the support of other folks kind of going into that. Something to consider is what you can offer participants. Really highlighting the benefits of mentorship is one thing that we tried to do in our recruitment strategy. But again, this is something to consider, like what else could you offer if you're at a local level to folks who participate in your program. Something else that comes up is, attitudes towards mentorship. And when we're thinking about mentorship specifically for tradeswomen, the fact that at some locals, the idea of participating in something that is female-centered, some tradeswomen that we spoke to felt like this might put a target on their back among their male coworkers and allies. And so something that we also want to consider in that is how, you construct your message about the mentorship program. Who can participate, and what are your inclusion criteria and who cannot, and how to consider just the range of attitudes as you market and try to recruit for folks who are participating. There are also some key roles for mentorship programs that we would highly recommend you have in place as you're designing a program. And the first is a coordinator. So this person is really doing kind of the day-to-day logistical work of administering a mentorship program. This person might do kind of email coordination for meetings, make in-person pitches at committee meetings to raise awareness of the program. This person might also do the bulk of recruiting and matching mentors and mentees who choose to participate. We also really recommend having a mentor support person, and this is someone who can provide confidential support to both mentors and mentees as challenges naturally arise, whether in a mentorship pairing or just in the individual lives of mentors and mentees that might impact their ability to participate in the program. For our purposes, we would say someone who's a little bit removed from the day-to-day of the goings-on at a local. It might be a good fit for this role. This could be a retired member. And then thirdly, having a trainer or facilitator, someone to help administer and deliver the training can be really helpful as you think about training your mentors before matching them with their mentees. And in this case, someone who really has the trust of the people who are participating in your program is key. Someone with prior facilitation experience can be really helpful in this case. In terms of how to select mentors, there were really three key qualities that we found were common across all of our mentors who really had a valuable experience in the program and who were able to effectively support their mentees. And the first of that is a real desire to support future tradeswomen. Often something we heard from tradeswomen who participated was that, although their time was scarce and they didn't have a lot of extra capacity necessarily to offer, the desire they had to kind of pay it forward and make sure that the experience of those coming up in an apprenticeship program, that they had a better experience than they did, really was a driver to their desire to participate and their desire to support mentees in the program. A second piece is strong communication. And while this is something that we teach in the mentor training, especially for someone coming in with a little less experience or who maybe has just journeyed out or just has less experience in the trades overall, someone who's going to be able to effectively set and communicate boundaries and know sort of when they need to seek support is really helpful in terms of mentors being able to sort of effectively negotiate the bounds of the mentor role. And lastly, a real willingness to learn and grow is also supportive for mentors. And, something we heard from mentors who maybe have 20 or more years of experience in the trade is that even if they felt like they had to deal with something challenging on the job site as an apprentice, they realized in talking to their mentees that sometimes their first instinct was to say, well, I had to deal with this too. And so here's how I recommend you deal with it, or maybe you just need to deal with this. But something we heard from mentors was that actually no, if a mentee is really struggling with something happening on a job site, even if they as a mentor had to sort of grit their teeth and get through that's not how the next generation necessarily needs to be approaching it. So a real willingness to learn and grow and sort of move through some of the generational shifts of the industry. In terms of matching mentors and mentees, the approach that we took was for mentors to write biographies. This was very remote friendly for our program since we were working with mentors across the country. And this, we had mentors answer questions specifically about their availability. So when in a week they would be able to meet, how they would describe their personality and communication type, why they wanted to be a mentor, any other identities that they held that they wanted to share with potential mentees, as well as other skills or certifications or experiences that they thought were helpful for mentees to know. And the way that we then engaged in the pairing process from there is we sent out these biographies to all of our participating mentees and had them preference their top 3 mentors that they would like to work with based on these biographies, as well as anyone else they would be willing to work with. Now, another approach to this that we might have taken had we had more in-person training and interaction between mentors and mentees would have been more of a social gathering or sort of speed dating approach to matching. So this might look like mentors and mentees coming together in the same space and getting to know each other in kind of a mixer setting, and then doing a round of speed dating where mentees get to move from mentor to mentor who might answer these same questions that we had them answer in the biographies in really short 2 to 3 minute stints so that mentees can get a sense of the personalities of the mentors and then preference from there. In terms of sustaining the program, this is definitely a challenge and was a challenge based on our experience, but there are a few things that we learned from our experience that we want to share with you that can be really helpful in maintaining some momentum for your mentorship program. And the first of which is providing some form of recognition for mentors who complete the training. This might look like a local level certification. So if that is something that's possible within your organization to formally recognize the skills that mentors who go through your training develop, and making that into something that can be put on a resume or something like that can be really helpful in mentors feeling recognized for the work that they're putting in. Something else that we did throughout our program was checking in regularly with mentors and mentees to make sure that you're sort of helping to avoid any challenges that come up before they get bigger, and helping course correct or connect folks with resources as needed, or find solutions to challenges that are coming up. And the third is that evaluating your mentorship program and showing the impact of the program and sharing that back with your participants or your organization can also be an effective way to build momentum and support for continuing it.
All right. I'm going to talk about some of what our best practices guide. And when Lily went to the website and showed you the training, this is something that's available as a PDF under the resources section of the landing page. So this best practice guide is kind of an organized brain dump of the things that we learned from developing this program and deploying this program, and from conversations with mentors and mentees about what they liked about the program, what they would have done different. So this PDF document can be accessed online. It can also be printed, and it's really it has more detail on how to find and match mentors and mentees, what support roles are needed, how to navigate programmatic challenges. It has materials to use for recruitment, training, and evaluation of your program. And it also has facilitation guides. So Lily had mentioned that in addition to having mentors work through this online training, we also got all of our mentors together for Zoom sessions. And during that time, we had a trained facilitator who walked through having the mentors apply the skills, get into smaller groups and practice and share. And so the facilitation guides that we used for those 4 Zoom sessions are also available in the best practices guide, which could be of value to a facilitator that you might work with to deliver the content. So here's how you access these materials. And unfortunately, it's not one click and you're done. So the QR code, which you can follow, will take you to the landing page for the Northwest Center for Public Health Practice Learning Link program. From there, you will have to register. And so you will, register with your email, set a password for yourself, and they collect some information such as what industry you work in, and things like that. So we do encourage you to self-identify that you're part of the construction industry, because then that allows us to see the impact that the training is having. After you've registered, it will present you with options of courses, and you will click on self-paced courses, and then our course, which is called Mentoring Smart Women. You can also search for mentoring or any of those keywords to find the training. And from there, you will be able to access the self-paced training, the best practices guide, which includes the facilitation guides, the evaluation guides, and the Mentor Handbook. And we didn't talk a lot about the Mentor Handbook, but that is kind of, not only covers some of the high points of the training, which could be useful if you want to do this in person or in groups in person, but it also has kind of ideas for your first couple mentor-mentee sessions together. What are topics to cover? It has worksheets to fill out about kind of what are shared norms of the relationship, mentor tracking logs. So it's kind of just a host of resources to support the mentor and mentee, particularly as they start to form their relationship. So this is an example from our best practices guide here. So you can kind of see how we have broken this out. So this is a section on setting up the mentorship program, and what makes a good mentor. And there's an overview section where we talk about, why this is something we're interested in. Then we have some recommendations for implementation for you all. And then also reflections from our study, where we kind of talk about how did we do it in our study, what would we have done differently, and things like that. So this is just an example for you to see kind of the type of information in that best practices guide. And to wrap up, we would love to hear from you all with questions. There is our information. If you are interested in starting a mentorship program, would like to discuss these materials, have any interest in talking to us, we would welcome to hear from you.
Thanks so much, Marissa and Lily.
Yeah, we'll end with our acknowledgements here, Chris.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean
No,
to cut you off. I
Here
thought
they
you were
are.
all-
You can see them. Yeah, we'll just let folks read those.
All right, great. So we can go ahead and move on to the Q&A section. And like I said in the beginning, anyone who has questions, if they want to put them in the Q&A box or into the chat, I will do my best to get to them once we get through some of the questions that came in during the registration process. And for those of you who did ask those questions during the registration process, we really appreciate it, because we're actually take those questions in mind during the final kind of touches that go on the presentation, and try to answer some of them within the presentation itself if it wasn't entirely clear. So the first question I have for the team is, could a mentorship program be implemented to bring more women into becoming trainers? And this question didn't say what type of trainers. I'm assuming it's trainers within the apprenticeship and training system, but it could be safety trainers or some other type. So can you react to that question?
Yeah, definitely. I can start out with that one. I think the short answer is yes. The skills covered in this training that we talked about, active listening, self-advocacy, problem solving, goal setting, these are all skills that can apply to folks in a range of positions, within a local, in the trades. And so, while this program is really targeted towards tradeswomen at, any level, the apprentice level, and then among, journey level mentors, something we did hear from participants in our study was that the confidence and sort of the empowerment skills that they felt like they developed through this training were, in part supportive in their efforts to taking on more leadership roles, becoming foremen or business agents, or moving up to work for the international. So I think this could also definitely be supportive in terms of just the bare skills that are taught for folks who are in a trainer role.
Great, thank you. Another question for organizations just starting to develop a mentorship program, what foundational steps from the guide would you consider most important? I know you hit on some of those foundational steps, but maybe you could reiterate a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, we covered what we would consider to be the key elements. And just to kind of reiterate those, certainly getting leadership support. So getting buy-in, so it becomes a program that is sustained and prioritized. Recruiting strong mentors, so making sure that you kind of have enough of a base in order to start your program. Matching mentors and mentees thoughtfully. And so this is something that Lily didn't discuss, but in our study, we made some matches that were not a good fit. And so checking in with those mentors and mentees after they'd had a chance to have a couple meetings, we were able to react and kind of shuffle the matches to make sure that everybody felt confident with the match. And of course, doing that in a thoughtful way that's, beneficial. So that is something that we found to be important. And also considering the structures to make the program sustainable. We know this is challenging with particularly for groups that are already spread thin, which is many, many of us, but ensuring that the program is prioritized, that there's some kind of recognition, if appropriate, for the folks who are participating, and evaluation efforts, which can be informal or formal to improve on the program for future offerings.
And I think that kind of goes to the next question I had. And the question is, what is the most important thing you can do to make sure the mentorship is successful when everyone is so busy? But it really gets to the point of sustainability. And one point you made was checking in to make sure that the mentor-mentee relationship is working and adjust if necessary. And some of the other elements related to sustainability. There's also questions in the chat and the Q&A about sustainability. So I don't know if there was something else that you could add to what you've said. Maybe the evaluation might be key to that.
I think absolutely yes, the evaluation is key to that. And even, if we're thinking about evaluation, however formal or informal it might be, often we think about that as happening right at the end or after something has happened. But I think it's also really valuable to get input from your participants, both mentors and mentees along the way, to say, in the case of mentors who might be going through the training, hey, is the modality of this training working for you? Is having online sessions more supportive, or coming together in person, or doing some sort of a hybrid style, and allowing folks who want to participate to sort of help share in the decision-making process about those modality choices. And I think, just generally along the way, getting feedback, not just about how the pairing is going, but how the structure of the mentorship is functioning, of the program is functioning to support both mentors and mentees. And I think when participants feel like their feedback is being taken into account, that can also support buy-in and just sustained momentum.
That's great. I will check through the chat again, and definitely we have Q&A, but the one question that came in prior to the webinar that I think is important is, would the program look different if it were men being mentored rather than a women mentorship program?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that, we did not make restrictions based on gender for joining our study. We did have a male mentor. Only one male signed up to participate. The rest were all women. But just to be clear that we know that men can be excellent allies, and it's important to include them in the mentorship program. We did, of course, when we were doing the matching, ensure that that, people could specify which genders they were comfortable working with to make sure that, we were being respectful of that. But of course, all of the skills that we talk about, active listening, goal setting, problem solving, self-advocacy, these are all, of course, extremely applicable beyond tradeswomen. And our training does contextualize these with kind of examples specific to tradeswomen. But those examples can also apply to men, right? PPE that does not fit a woman, that's kind of a common tale, but there are men who also struggle to have PPE that fit. Things around access to clean bathroom facilities, that it can also impact men. So I think that the program could work with all genders. It could, to still support those skills that kind of help to create a more welcoming and psychologically safe workplace.
Right. Regarding sustainability, there's some questions about how do we, in the experience of your study, is there anything you can say about the longevity of the mentorship programs or sustainability? Are there timelines or points from the point of when it was set up to when you monitored it? This project is just about done. There's not much funding left in it. It's running out. But just something about like your experience in this arena, like how did the sustainability go?
Yeah. So when we, upon entry into the study, folks took a survey, kind of to look at what are your experiences at work, and this was an academic endeavor. So it was, what's your stress? How are your injuries? Do you experience harassment and discrimination? So it was kind of a complex survey. This survey was repeated after they had been in a mentorship relationship for 6 months, and then after they had been in a mentorship relationship for 1 year. So that's kind of one aspect that we are still analyzing, is kind of how participating in this mentorship program affected some of those outcomes, both over 6 months and after 1 year. Related to kind of checking in the program sustainability, we did quarterly check-ins. So every 3 months of the mentorship program that the mentorship pairing was active, Lily checked in, to have you connected with each other? Are there any challenges? Is there anything you need from me? So sometimes that would be, I haven't heard from my mentor, or my mentee, I can't get in touch with them. Or, the time zone difference between us is really not working. So we were kind of able to problem solve those. So that happened every 3 months. And we kind of adapted from there. When we enrolled folks in the study into the mentorship program, we asked them to commit to a 1-year mentorship experience. And so at the end of 1 year, some of the mentor-mentee pairings have kept in touch and, may continue meeting. Others said, this has been valuable, but I don't feel like I need to continue this relationship. Do you have more? Those are kind of our touch points, and you can talk about our ongoing evaluation.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, also in those quarterly check-ins, sometimes that was a situation where if there was an issue that came up that we found out about from a mentor through those check-ins, that would sometimes cue us to tap our mentor support person, who is a tradeswoman herself, works for Smart International in this case, and was someone who could kind of offer more lived experience and just wisdom from her experience in the trades to both our mentors and mentees. So that was something resource-wise we were able to offer, and that was definitely really, really valuable. She also participated in many of our training sessions and would share stories of her experience to contextualize a lot of the skills. And then, as Marissa mentioned, in our ongoing evaluation, we are conducting interviews, both with mentors, mentees, and then people at the locals, so coordinators, people in leadership roles at each of the locals that we worked with just to get their insight on how the program worked, how it could work better in the future, what recommendations we can make that are informed by their experiences. And so that's still ongoing, but from a result of that, we hope to also synthesize feedback from people who participated in the program so that we can continue to enhance best practices.
Great. One quick question. Do mentors have more than one mentee at a time?
Yes, it depends. In the second round of the program, we did 2 rounds of year-long mentorship. In our second round, we had a smaller cohort, so we actually had evenly matched numbers of mentors and mentees. So in this most recent round, every mentor worked with just one mentee. In our first round, we had more mentees who enrolled, and so most mentors worked with 1 or 2 mentees. In some cases, for mentors who really felt like they had the capacity or kind of were able to put us in touch with someone who was eligible to become a mentee, some worked with 3, but people did not work with any more than 3. And in general, we tried to keep it capped at 2 just to not overburden mentors.
Great. There are some questions on here. One is about translating this to other crafts outside of the sheet metal trade, and really looking at the free materials that are available through the website that's been shared. You do have to register for it, so you can take the training, but you can download these materials. These are applicable across trades, and CPWR can definitely modify them to if there are certain things that are unique to a certain trade, and there's a lot we can do through our research to practice program with past research projects to make sure they stay relevant. Another question similarly, moving forward is about, will there be another evaluation of the impact of mentorship on the construction industry after 1 to 5 years? And that's something that is possible. We don't have a research project funded right now to do that, but we do have a small study program that gives researchers the opportunity to apply for one-shot funding relatively rapidly to do what we call a small study that could follow up on this and take a look at some of those factors down the line. Back to some of the question that I see over in the Q&A. Is there anything you can share, say that the question is, there's 2. What are the indicators of a successful match and also of an unsuccessful match? Is there anything that you saw in the patterns of this project that, you could flag for people so that they're, maybe on the lookout for if they're trying to set up mentorship programs?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. And I would say with matches in our experience that were not as successful, the primary reason for that was often logistical. And because we were recruiting and working with a cohort from across the country and even a couple folks up in Canada, just the lack of overlap in schedules would often be something where, mentors and mentees just could not effectively meet regularly. And that was kind of the primary reason for the the lack of connection between them. But I would say too, something that we heard from mentors with mentees, where the match was more challenging is when the mentee really wasn't ready perhaps to have a mentor or to receive support or help. And so I think that's something we didn't talk about as much today, but as much as we focus on what makes a good mentor and how to recruit for a strong mentor cohort, making sure that the mentees that you recruit to really do want a mentor and are kind of willing to just engage in that relationship and that process and to accept help is also really key.
Yeah, we found that some mentees preferred a mentor at a different local because their feeling was, then I can talk more openly about the people that might be challenging personalities at the local, and there won't be any kind of risk of them knowing that person. But then that would also sometimes lead to you have someone on the West Coast and someone on the East Coast, and it's just hard for them to connect. And then there were others who specifically wanted a mentor in their local because they feel they're going to best understand kind of the local dynamics. So I think that was kind of being able to assess, what the person wants. Do you want someone removed from your local? What is helpful? But often then that leads to more challenging logistics for people connecting.
Right. There's something in here that says, not a question, but the section about mentors being willing to learn and be shown to be wrong is the huge piece missing from mentorship programs. Very well done. So I'll give you that kudos. And then this one is not so much of a kudos. And I'm not sure it's absolutely correct. It says you mentioned higher injury risk for women. Do you have evidence showing higher injury rates for women compared to men? And I'm not sure if
So yes, this is a good point and an important to bring up because I did misspeak a little bit here. So certainly when you look at the overall injury rates between males and females in construction, and the CPWR data dashboard has done a great job of making this accessible. Men do have higher injury rates. But what we have seen is that rates for women have not changed over, at least the last 10-year period. And often the rates for women are believed to be lower because they are given the less they are given jobs that maybe do not fully utilize their skills. So you're going to be, we heard a lot, you're going to be pushing the broom. Or you're cleaning up, or we don't, want you doing this task because of your gender. So when we were talking about injury risk, what I was trying to say is that their risk is increased in some ways because of their ill-fitting PPE, right? If you don't have a harness that fits a female body, they're at increased risk. If your gloves are too big, then maybe you're going to take them off and that increases risk. But yes, if you look solely at the numbers, men do have higher rates. But I think when you dig into some of the kind of contextual factors around female injuries, it still shows that there are some gendered concerns that could be addressed.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. This question, actually, I don't understand. If you may understand it, so I will just go ahead and read it. Since mentees don't have the knowledge and experience, are developmental goals layered?
So I think I understand some of this kind of from a instructional standpoint where it's, you wouldn't necessarily, you have to kind of scaffold the skills before someone can be an expert at active listening. They have to understand some of the other factors, and so we did try to do this in our training, and you saw when Lily walked through the active listening module there, how we break down the different parts of active listening. And so the training is kind of the low level scaffolding here. We're giving you just kind of the information, you're reading it, it's very passive. And then as we move into the facilitation, it's emphasized by the trainer, and then you have an opportunity to practice it and apply it. And so kind of working through the different levels of how folks learn, at least for the mentor training. Now, when the mentor is imparting that skill to the mentee, we don't necessarily have a framework for them to do so in kind of a more scaffolded way.
Great. Thank you. The last question I'll answer is, will you send this presentation out after? Yes, we send it to everyone who's registered, a copy of the presentation, a link to the recording, and any supplemental materials we send. We'll surely send out the link to register and take the training online and download the free material, and it's all free. Download the materials. So with that, I just wanted to thank you Marissa and you, Lily, and of course, Jessica, our research to practice director, as well as our translators, for helping us today and presenting this webinar. We really appreciate it, and I hope folks got some good information out of it. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.